The morning sun glared down on Maplewood Estates, a pristine gated community where the grass was trimmed to regulation height and neighbors smiled only when necessary. At the heart of its seemingly perfect image was the Homeowners Association, a small but tyrannical board led by Karen Templeton, the HOA manager. Karen, in her early 50s, ruled with an iron clipboard and a venomous smile. Her word was law. Her crusade against noncompliance was legendary, and so was her disdain for those she deemed unsuitable. She often targeted residents for minor violations: mailboxes one shade off-white, decorative gnomes in flower beds, or porch lights that were too whimsical. But her newest obsession was a quiet man named George Wilkins. George had moved into Maplewood 3 years ago. In his late 60s, he was a soft-spoken man with a silver beard and a noticeable limp. After a long career in business, he had retired early due to a degenerative joint condition. His house, like him, was modest and dignified. But Karen saw him differently. She considered him unkempt, unfit, and unworthy of Maplewood. His walking cane, she claimed, was a tripping hazard. His sedan, slightly dented on the side, was called unsightly. And the wheelchair ramp he had installed without prior HOA approval? A defacement. At first, George tolerated the warning letters and condescending emails. But when she threatened him with fines, George requested a private meeting. That was his first mistake. Karen sat across from him in the HOA clubhouse, tapping her manicured nails on a marble table. "George, we have standards here. If you can't keep up, maybe this isn't the right place for you." He looked her dead in the eye. "Are you saying I should leave because I'm disabled?" "No, of course not. But appearances matter. You understand, don't you?"
He didn't respond.
Instead, he walked out. That day, something shifted in him. He had built empires, negotiated with world leaders, and survived boardroom wars. Karen had no idea who she was dealing with. Karen doubled her efforts. She instituted arbitrary policies, rules that seemed designed specifically to inconvenience George. All mobility aids must be stored out of sight. No vehicles with visible damage allowed overnight in driveways. All homes must undergo external inspection every 6 months. Residents grumbled but complied. No one wanted to become the next target. George, however, resisted. He started documenting everything. Every letter, every citation, every overheard comment. When Karen called his condition a burden to community aesthetics, he recorded it. One day, she crossed a line. She emailed the board suggesting George be removed from the HOA rolls for nonconformity and chronic violations. She used coded language, lack of contribution, constant exceptions, and drag on property values. She even suggested contacting a legal team to encourage relocation. But what she didn't know was that George already owned the company that managed Maplewood's finances. 3 years ago, when the previous management firm mishandled the HOA's budget, George, through a shell company, had stepped in and quietly bought the firm. He'd kept his distance, preferring peace to pride. Until now. That night, George called his attorney and said, "It's time." Over the next month, the HOA board began receiving letters. Audits were announced. Financial discrepancies were flagged. Karen was summoned for interviews regarding misappropriated funds and improper vendor contracts. She blamed the treasurer. The treasurer resigned. Then came the town hall. George arrived late, using his cane. The room was packed. Residents were buzzing about the chaos. Karen stood on the stage, attempting damage control. "We're dealing with unexpected audits and unfounded allegations. I assure you, everything is under control," she said, her voice cracking slightly. George walked slowly to the front. He handed a note to the MC. When his name was called, a murmur spread. "Mr. Wilkins?" George took the mic. "I won't take much of your time, but I think you all deserve to know the truth." He paused, then pulled out a document. "I am the majority owner of Willow Creek Management, the company that oversees Maplewood's HOA operations. Karen has been targeting residents unfairly, violating ADA regulations, and misusing HOA funds." Gasps echoed. Karen turned pale. We have records of personal expenses charged to the HOA budget, intimidation tactics, and a clear pattern of discrimination. Someone shouted, "Is this true?" George nodded. Effective immediately, Karen Templeton is suspended pending a full investigation. And I'll personally ensure this community starts serving its residents, not controlling them. Karen tried to speak, but the crowd drowned her out. Security escorted her out as she shouted, "You're making a mistake." Weeks passed. A new interim manager was brought in, fair, experienced, and empathetic. George stayed behind the scenes but made sure reforms were implemented. All HOA policies were reviewed and revised. A new committee was formed to include elderly and disabled voices. Discriminatory fines were refunded. Residents felt the change almost immediately. For the first time in years, they gathered without fear, sharing stories, planting gardens, organizing game nights. As for Karen, the investigation confirmed everything. She was banned from holding any HOA-related position again and fined heavily for misused funds. One morning, George sat on his porch, sipping tea, watching a young couple hang fairy lights without fear of a violation notice. A neighbor waved. "Thank you, Mr. Wilkins, for everything." He smiled. It was overdue. Then he looked at the wheelchair ramp Karen had once tried to remove. He traced the grain of the wood with his fingers and whispered, "Let them come. I'll be ready." Because now, Maplewood belonged to everyone. And George Wilkins had made sure of it.